Kalen Ward walked with steady steps, even though two armored alien guards pushed him forward through the long crystal hallway of the royal palace. The lights above him were dim and cold blue, giving the whole place a feeling of endless distance. Every other prisoner who had been dragged through this corridor in the past had cried, begged, or shaken with fear. But Kalen walked like he was entering a meeting room, not the throne chamber of one of the most feared alien nobles in the entire sector. The guards kept glancing at him as if they expected him to break down any second. Humans were rare this far from Earth, and most aliens believed humans were weak. They expected trembling knees, shaky voices, desperate eyes. But Kalen's face stayed calm, almost unreadable. His eyes quietly studied everything. The architecture, the guards, the silent air, and the soft vibrations running through the floor from the creature waiting ahead. The huge double doors opened with a deep metallic groan. Warm air rushed out, carrying a strange smell like dust, metal, and something wild. The throne hall was massive, filled with banners carrying symbols of authority and power. Torches of blue fire burned in tall stands, their light flickering across the polished stone floor. At the far end sat Princess Arindra of the Cathari Dominion. She was tall, elegant, and intimidating, with markings along her skin that shimmered like molten silver. She carried herself like someone who had never been challenged in her life. But the true reason most people feared her was the giant creature sitting beside her throne, Carvol, a massive bioengineered guardian beast. Twice the height of a human, armored with black organic plating, eyes glowing with a quiet alertness. Everyone who had ever stood near this creature trembled. Some fainted. A few even confessed to crimes they didn't commit, just to escape its presence. The guards pushed Kalen forward until he stood alone in the center of the hall. The princess leaned back in her seat, watching him with a curious expression, one she normally reserved for new weapons, not new people. "You may step back," she commanded the guards. They obeyed instantly and retreated. Now, it was just Kalen, Arindra, and the beast. Arindra studied the human for a long, silent moment. His posture was straight, hands relaxed by his sides. No fear, not even discomfort, just focus and quiet confidence. Finally, the princess spoke, her voice calm but carrying cold authority. "Human, do you understand where you stand?" Kalen nodded respectfully. In the throne hall of Princess Arindra, and in front of a creature that could tear a tank in half. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but interest. Most people stuttered or bowed too low. Kalen answered, like he was giving a mission report. "And do you understand," she continued, lowering her voice, "that with a single command my companion could devour you?" Carvol let out a low growl, a vibration deep enough to be felt through the floor. Kalen did not step back. His heartbeat quickened slightly, but he didn't show it. Instead, he looked at the creature with the same calm expression he would use while examining wildlife. "I understand," he replied, "but I don't believe he will." The hall froze. Even the guards, far behind, exchanged shocked looks. Arindra leaned forward, one eyebrow raised. "And why, human? Do you believe my loyal guardian will spare your life?" Kalen met her gaze without trembling. "Because I see intelligence in his eyes, not blind aggression. And because fear would only make me act foolishly. Staying calm allows me to understand what I'm facing." The princess tapped a finger slowly on the arm of her throne. This was not the answer she expected. Most creatures, human or not, avoided even looking at Carvol for more than a second. But this human, he spoke as if he stood in front of a trained animal instead of a legendary war beast. "You speak boldly," she said. "Do you think this is bravery?" "I think it's clarity," Kalen replied. Arindra tilted her head. "Or foolishness?" Kalen gave a small shrug. "Possibly. But fear has never saved me. Observation has." Her lips twitched slightly, almost the beginning of a smile. She had met soldiers, mercenaries, slaves, ambassadors, and criminals. None had spoken like this. "Step forward, human," she commanded. Callan obeyed without hesitation, walking closer to the throne and to the giant beast. Every step brought him nearer to Carvol's huge shadow. The creature's eyes glowed brighter as it watched him. Callan felt a wave of heat from the creature's massive body, like standing near the entrance of a cave hiding something ancient. When he was only a few feet away, Irindra lifted her chin. "Carvol," she said softly, her voice carrying a coded tone. "Approach." The beast rose with a heavy, earth-shaking movement. The sound of its armored limbs scraping against the floor echoed through the chamber. Many beings had fainted at this moment. Callan remained still. The creature's enormous head lowered toward him, evaluating him. Its nostrils flared. Its growl rumbling was like distant thunder. Irindra watched carefully. She expected Callan to break at this moment. Even the bravest warriors usually collapsed in the presence of the beast at this distance. But Callan slowly raised his hand, not threateningly, not disrespectfully, just a neutral, open gesture to show he wasn't afraid. Carvol blinked once. Then something unexpected happened. The beast lowered its giant head slightly, as if curious. Irindra sat up straight, shocked. This had never happened with anyone. Not even with high-ranking nobles. Not even with trained soldiers. "Impossible," she whispered. Callan's hand hovered inches from the creature's skin. He didn't touch it, he knew better. He simply let the creature observe him, letting it choose its own reaction. Carvol sniffed twice, then exhaled a warm breath directly onto Callan. The gesture wasn't threatening. It was a sign of acceptance. The entire hall became silent. Irindra's eyes widened. "How did you do that?" "I didn't do anything," Callan said softly. "He simply understood I wasn't here to harm him. You didn't fear him." Irindra replied quietly, almost to herself. "That alone is dangerous." Callan turned his gaze toward her. Fear can turn a creature aggressive. Calm invites calm. The princess stared at him for several long seconds, trying to understand his mind. Humans were known for many things: stubbornness, bravery, unpredictability. But this calmness, this quiet confidence, this ability to read a creature feared across the galaxy, that was something new. "Human," she said finally, her voice softer than before. "Tell me your name." "Callan Ward." "Well, Callan Ward," she said, folding her hands. "Your reaction has made my council very uncomfortable. They warned me that humans are unpredictable and hard to control." Callan nodded. "That's true. But now," she continued, her eyes narrowing again, "I wonder if they are simply afraid of something they do not understand." Carvol settled back beside her throne, watching Callan with interest instead of hostility. The creature's natural instincts had accepted him faster than any alien in this palace. Irindra studied this for a moment, then said, "I have changed my mind. You will not be punished today." Callan's eyebrows lifted slightly. "I appreciate that. But," she added firmly, "you will remain here under my supervision. I want to understand why my guardian reacted this way. Humans do not impress me easily. But you have done something unusual." Callan nodded calmly. "As you wish." Irindra leaned back again, but her posture was no longer cold and distant. There was curiosity now, something she rarely allowed herself to feel. For the first time in years, someone in her throne room had not bowed in fear, had not begged for mercy, had not shaken at the sight of her power. A human stood before her with steady eyes, steady heart, and steady courage. She wondered whether this was simply human bravery, or something much more dangerous. Callan Ward was escorted to a private chamber deep inside the palace. But this time, the guards no longer pushed him roughly. Their steps were careful, their voices quiet, their eyes constantly returning to the human who had just changed something they believed could never change. Carvol's reaction. Whispers had already begun spreading through the palace halls. Servants paused to stare at him. Some guards murmured to each other, wondering how a simple human had walked up to the princess's guardian beast and survived. Others wondered if Princess Arindra had finally found a creature even she couldn't control. Callan ignored the attention. His mind was focused not on fear or pride, but on observing everything, learning what kind of world he had stepped into. He had been through difficult missions before, and he knew that survival depended more on understanding people than on weapons or strength. The chamber the guards led him into was surprisingly comfortable. It wasn't luxurious like the princess's quarters, but still far better than a holding cell. There was a clean bed, a small table, and a window overlooking the outer towers of the palace. The door, of course, was locked from the outside. "Princess Arindra will call for you soon," one guard said, his voice stiff but respectful. Callan nodded, and the guards left. He sat on the edge of the bed, deep in thought. The princess's reaction earlier had been strange. She was curious, surprised, and maybe even impressed. He had expected a leader like her to be cold and strict, but she wasn't easy to read. There was pride in her eyes, but also confusion. And maybe something more, something like loneliness, hidden deep under layers of authority. While Callan waited, he thought about Carvol. The beast had responded to calmness, not fear. That meant it was more intelligent than most aliens believed. With the right approach, even the most dangerous creature could show a gentle side. Hours passed. The sky outside turned into a glowing purple shade, common on this alien world. Callan rested, but he stayed alert. He knew he was in a palace full of political tension. Some council members probably wanted him gone already. And the princess, she wanted answers. Finally, the door unlocked with a metallic click. A young alien attendant entered, a servant with soft blue markings and nervous eyes. "Princess Arindra requests your presence," she said, bowing slightly. Callan stood and followed her through the twisting corridors. The palace felt alive, vibrating with energy and guarded by symbols of authority. The closer they got to the inner halls, the more serious the guards became. When they reached a wide doorway, the attendant stopped. "She is inside." Callan stepped through the doorway into a smaller hall lit by floating lanterns. The room felt warmer than the throne chamber, almost like a private sanctuary. Princess Arindra stood near a large viewing window, her back facing him. And beside her sat Carvol, still and quiet, like a shadow carved from stone. The princess spoke without turning. "You took your time." "I came when I was called," Callan replied. Arindra slowly turned toward him, her eyes focused on him with a studying intensity, like someone reading an ancient text for hidden meaning. "Carvol has never reacted this way to anyone," she said. "Not even to members of my council." Callan nodded. "He's intelligent and sensitive to emotions." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Do you assume he is like a human animal? Something that follows instinct?" No," Callan replied. "I think he senses intention. Fear makes creatures defensive. Calmness makes them curious." Carvol let out a low rumble, but it wasn't a growl. It sounded almost like agreement. Arindra blinked in surprise again. "Even now, he reacts to you. Why? What is it that he sees in you?" Callan took a quiet breath. "I don't know for sure, but maybe he sensed that I respect him. And you." The princess's expression changed for a second, not weakness, but something softer. She quickly hid it behind her usual firm voice. "Respect?" she repeated. "Most people fear us, human. Fear keeps them in line. Fear keeps order." Callan shook his head gently. "Fear creates distance. Respect creates understanding." Arindra walked closer, stopping only a few feet away. She was tall. her presence powerful, her movements filled with confidence. But Callan still didn't step back. Do you expect me to believe that a human, a species known for causing trouble, can stand in front of me without fear? Without shaking? She asked. I don't expect anything, Callan answered. I only act based on what feels right. Treat, action. Erindra stared at him for several seconds. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to people speaking normally around her. Most spoke with trembling voices, terrified of saying something wrong. You are strange, Callan Ward, she murmured. Strange. And interesting. A soft knock echoed at the door. A council advisor stepped inside, bowing quickly. Princess Erindra, he said urgently. The council demands an update on the human situation. They fear he might be dangerous. Erindra's eyes darkened with annoyance. The council fears everything they cannot control. They fear shadows. They fear ideas. They even fear themselves. The advisor swallowed nervously. They request you to hand him over for questioning. No, she said instantly. Her voice was sharp, powerful. The advisor's face paled. Princess, the council will not like this. They don't have to like it, she replied. They only need to obey. The advisor bowed and hurried out, but Callan knew the tension was real. Erindra was respected. Yes, but politics in alien empires were dangerous. A single decision could make enemies. The princess turned back to Callan. You see, she said. Your presence causes trouble already. I didn't intend to. She crossed her arms. You didn't need to. Your survival was enough to cause fear. Callan offered a small smile. If you want me gone, I'll accept it. Her expression tightened. I didn't say I wanted you gone. She walked toward Carvol and placed a hand on the beast's head. The creature leaned into her touch, showing its bond with her. Carvol has never chosen anyone but me, she said quietly. But today, he accepted you. That cannot be ignored. Callan stepped closer, careful not to startle the beast. Maybe he senses that I don't want to challenge him, or challenge you. Erindra met his eyes again. And yet, your calmness challenges everyone else. A long silence followed. The princess finally exhaled slowly, as if releasing a deep thought she had kept hidden. Human, she said. I want to understand your species better. I want to know what gives you this spirit, this courage that borders on foolishness. Callan answered softly. Humans survive by adapting, by staying calm, by helping each other. Erindra tilted her head. Helping? Even those who show power over you? Sometimes especially those, Callan said. She stared at him again longer this time. Her gaze wasn't harsh now. It was thoughtful, curious, maybe even a little warm. Suddenly, Carvol moved. The creature rose and slowly stepped toward Callan. The floor vibrated with every step. But Callan didn't move away. The beast lowered its head again, sniffing him. Then, it pressed its forehead lightly against Callan's chest, an action that made Erindra inhale sharply. That is a gesture of trust, she whispered. He has never done that with anyone. Callan gently placed a hand on the beast's armored head. The creature let out a peaceful rumble. Erindra watched the scene with an expression she rarely showed, soft surprise mixed with something deeper. I don't understand this, she said quietly. But I want to. Callan nodded. I'll answer anything you ask. She looked at him for a long moment, then turned toward the window. Then stay, she said. For now, until I discover why a human does not fear me. Callan smiled faintly. Then I'll stay. The princess didn't look back, but he saw the faint curve of her lips, almost a smile reflected in the glass. And Carvol stayed beside him, calm and protective, as if he had already chosen where he believed Callan belonged. The following days, inside the palace, changed slowly. Yet everything around Callan felt different. The guards no longer looked at him like he was a threat. Instead, They watched him like a mystery they wanted to understand, but feared to approach. The servants walked past him quietly, stealing quick glances as if waiting for something unusual to happen again. And Princess Irindra. She called for him more often. She asked questions about humans, about Earth, about the way people lived without powerful beasts or royal titles. She listened to him with full attention, something she rarely gave even to her own advisors. Kalen answered honestly, simply, without exaggeration. And every time he spoke, she watched him with those sharp, silver-lined eyes, searching deeper than his words, trying to understand something hidden inside him. But the biggest change was Karvol. The enormous beast followed Kalen more than anyone expected. Whenever Kalen entered a room, the creature lifted its head, watching him with calm interest. Whenever Kalen walked through the hall, Karvol sometimes rose and walked behind him. At first, everyone panicked and scattered out of the way. But the beast didn't show aggression. It simply walked like a silent guardian. Even Irindra seemed surprised by this unusual behavior. She never admitted it directly, but Kalen noticed the small shift in her expression, the faint softening whenever Karvol stayed close to him. It was like she was watching something impossible happen right in front of her. And then came the day of the diplomatic gathering. Irindra's empire had been dealing with political tension for months. Factions inside her council wanted more power. Other alien races questioned her leadership. This gathering was her chance to show strength and stability. Representatives from various worlds arrived. The palace sparkled with clean banners, heavy guards, glowing crystal stands, and the soft hum of advanced security systems. Kalen had no official role in the event. He was simply told to remain near the side hall, close enough for Irindra to call him if she wished, but far enough that no one would question his presence. But Karvol decided otherwise. The beast walked beside Kalen the whole time, refusing to leave his side. Servants looked terrified, guards stiffened, and visitors stared with disbelief, as if they were seeing a myth behave like a calm pet. Princess Irindra noticed it the moment she entered the hall. Her long ceremonial cape swept behind her, gleaming with royal symbols. But her eyes, sharp as ever, shifted toward Kalen and the creature. She didn't look angry. She looked curious. The gathering began with formal greetings. Representatives spoke politely, but cautiously, afraid of offending Irindra. Kalen watched from behind a column, observing the whole room. Something felt strange, too tense, too quiet, too forced. He scanned the visitors. One group stood out. 3 delegates from a rival faction known for their ambition and harsh leadership style. They smiled too much. Their eyes darted around constantly, and their guards looked more like attackers than protectors. Kalen didn't trust them. He watched them the entire time, his instinct telling him something wasn't right. Karvol seemed to sense his alertness, because the beast's body stiffened slightly, its eyes narrowing toward the same direction. Irindra was in the middle of addressing the room when it happened. One of the suspicious delegates stepped forward, pretending to offer a ceremonial gift. He bowed, low, his hands hidden inside his long sleeves. Too hidden, too stiff, too unnatural. Kalen's senses sharpened instantly. Before Kalen could shout a warning, the delegate pulled out a small device, silent, compact, deadly. A bright spark ignited at the center of it. Kalen moved before thought caught up. He dashed across the hall with a speed that surprised even himself. The room erupted in gasps as he pushed through startled guards and reached Irindra just as the device activated. Without hesitation, he grabbed the princess and pulled her behind one of the pillar stands, shielding her with his own body. The device released a sharp burst of energy, nothing explosive, but dangerous enough to wound or kill at close range. The blast hit the edge of the stand, sending shards of crystal flying across the room. Guards screamed. Delegates panicked. Some ran for cover. Others ducked behind chairs. Kalen kept his arms around Irindra, pressing her safely against the pillar. Her breath caught in shock, not from danger, but from the sudden realization that a human had risked his own life to protect her. Behind them, Carvol roared. It was a sound that shook the entire hall like a quake. The massive beast lunged forward with explosive speed, smashing through furniture as if it weighed nothing. The attacking delegate tried to run, but Carvol reached him in seconds, pinning him to the ground with one heavy arm. The other two attackers fled, but guards intercepted them quickly. Everything happened so fast that the room was still echoing with chaos when Kalen finally loosened his grip on Arindra. He stepped back slightly, not wanting to overstep his boundaries. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Arindra stared at him in disbelief. Her voice softened, something almost unheard of from her. "You saved me." Without hesitation. "I just reacted," Kalen said simply. "Anyone would do the same." "No," she said firmly. "No, not anyone." He lowered his gaze, unsure what to say. The princess reached up and touched a scratched part of her ceremonial cape. A small tear ran through the fabric, caused by a flying shard. But she was unharmed. Completely unharmed. All because a human had acted instinctively to protect her. The hall slowly settled as guards secured the attackers. Delegates whispered among themselves. Everyone kept glancing at Kalen, then at Carvol, then back at the princess. Arindra stood tall again, her authority returning. She looked at Kalen not as a prisoner, not as a curiosity, but as someone who had shown her a kind of trust she had never seen. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Why did you do it, Kalen Ward? Why throw yourself in front of danger for me?" Kalen met her eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do." "That is not enough," she whispered. Others would have frozen. Even trained soldiers hesitate. "I didn't have time to think," Kalen replied. "And honestly, I didn't want anything to happen to you." That sentence affected her more than he realized. Her gaze softened again, her silver-lined markings glowing faintly. Before she could speak again, Carvol approached them. The beast lowered its enormous head toward Arindra, checking her for injuries. Once satisfied she was fine, it turned toward Kalen. The creature stared at the human with deep understanding, then bowed its head, a gesture of respect rarely given by the beast, even to the highest nobles. Arindra's breath caught. "He acknowledges your courage," she said quietly. "He sees you as one of us." Kalen placed a hand gently on the creature's head. "I'm glad." The hall watched in stunned silence. Princess Arindra looked around, then raised her voice with full royal power. "Let it be known," she declared, "that this human acted with honor beyond expectation. He saved my life. He will not be mistreated, questioned, or doubted. Anyone who threatens him, threatens me." Whispers exploded instantly. The council would not like this. The political factions would be furious. But Arindra didn't care. Kalen had shown loyalty without reason, courage without reward, and respect without fear. For someone like her who lived surrounded by power, suspicion, and danger that meant something. As the guards escorted the attackers away, Arindra looked back at Kalen with a thoughtful, almost gentle expression. "You confuse me, human," she said softly. "You challenge everything I believed." Kalen smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's a good thing." Arindra didn't answer, but she didn't need to. Her eyes said everything. Kalen Ward became a quiet storm inside the palace, something small on the outside, but powerful enough to change everything around him. After the attack at the gathering, the entire empire buzzed with rumors. Some said the human was dangerous. Others said he was lucky. But most whispered only one thing. He saved the princess. Princess Arindra tried to continue her duties as usual, but her thoughts kept returning to that moment. Kalen grabbing her and pulling her out of danger without a second of hesitation. No one had ever shielded her like that. Not soldiers, not advisors, not nobles. Only a human who owed her nothing. For the first time in her life, Arindra found herself unsure of her own feelings. She had always been strong, controlled, and distant. But around Kalen, something inside her shifted. Something warm. Something confusing. Meanwhile, the council reacted exactly as expected. The next morning, Arindra called Kalen to a private room, a quiet chamber with a long table made of shining black stone. Carvol lay near the far wall, silent but alert. Kalen stepped inside, noticing the tension in the air. Arindra wasn't sitting, she was pacing. That was unusual for someone who normally stood still, like a statue of authority. "You wanted to see me?" Kalen asked gently. She stopped walking and turned to him. "The council wants you removed." Kalen nodded. "They say you are a threat," she continued. "That a human with this much influence over Carvolve, and now over me, is unsafe." Kalen blinked slowly. "Am I unsafe?" "No." Her answer came instantly, too fast for a leader trained to measure every word. Silence filled the room, thick with unspoken emotions neither of them knew how to describe. Arindra looked away, then took a slow breath. "They want to send you to a distant research base under the guise of evaluation. But we both know what that means." Callan understood. If he were taken there, he would never return. "So what happens now?" he asked calmly. Arindra walked toward him, stopping only a few steps away. "You confuse them," Callan warned. "You confuse me even more. They cannot control what they do not understand." "I don't want control," Callan said softly. "I never wanted power." Arindra's voice dropped. "Then what do you want?" Callan hesitated, not because he lacked an answer, but because the truth felt dangerous. He finally spoke, slow and steady. "I want fairness. Understanding. I want peace here, not fear. And I want to help you." Arindra's eyes widened for a moment, then softened. She looked almost human in that small reaction, vulnerable in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. Before she could answer, the door burst open. A group of council members entered, their expressions tight with determination. Arindra's guards followed, standing tense like they expected a confrontation. The oldest council member stepped forward. "Princess Arindra, we are here by official authority of the Dominion Council." He pointed at Callan. "The human must be surrendered to us immediately." Arindra straightened slowly, her entire presence turning sharp and powerful. "He saved my life. He is under my protection." "That protection is no longer yours to give," the councilman declared. "Your decisions have become clouded." Clouded. Kaylin knew that word hurt her more deeply than any insult. It was a challenge to her leadership, her strength, her clarity. "Your guardian beast chooses him over us," another councilwoman snapped. "He stands closer to your throne each day. This is unacceptable." Carvol let out a low warning growl. But Callan gently raised his hand, calming the creature from across the room. The beast quieted instantly. Every council member froze. Even Arindra was stunned. Finally, the council leader spoke again, voice trembling slightly. "This human bends your beast to his will. Soon, perhaps he will bend you as well." Arindra stepped forward, her voice cold and sharp as a blade. "You forget yourselves. My decisions are not open for debate." "But Princess," the councilman said carefully, "your attachment is clear. You cannot deny it." Arindra inhaled sharply, ready to lash out. But Kaylin stepped forward before she could speak. "Princess," he said softly, "let me talk." She looked at him with surprise, then slowly nodded. Callan faced the council, completely unarmed, completely calm. "I never asked for Carvol's trust. I never asked for influence. And I never asked for power here. Yet you gained it," a councilwoman shouted. "I gained nothing," Callan replied. "Carvol reacted to peace, not force. To calmness, not fear. You see threats simply because you do not understand it. The council began to argue among themselves, but Kalen raised his voice not loud, but steady enough to silence them. Ask yourselves one thing. If I wanted to harm the princess, would I have saved her life? The hall fell silent. Irindra looked at him with an unreadable expression, part gratitude, part confusion, part something deeper. Kalen continued. Fear does not make you strong. It only blinds you. Your empire can be powerful without destroying everything unknown. The oldest councilman narrowed his eyes. Kalen answered simply, enough to know that no empire survives by killing what it doesn't understand. His words echoed in the chamber. Irindra stepped forward, her voice firm again. The human stays. That is final. The council exchanged angry looks, but they couldn't defy her openly, not yet. They bowed stiffly and left, leaving tension hanging in the air. When the door closed, Irindra let out a long breath she had been holding. You? Challenged the entire council. They needed to hear it, Callan said gently. She looked at him with a mixture of frustration, admiration, and gratitude. You risked more than your life today, Kalen Ward. I'm used to that, he replied with a soft smile. Something changed in her expression. Walls that she had carried all her life began to shift, almost crumble. Carvol approached them quietly. The beast lowered its head between the two, as if sensing the importance of this moment. The presence of the creature made everything feel grounding, real. Irindra took a slow step closer to Callan. Human, she said, in a quiet voice, repeating her words from the first day they met. Why don't you fear me? Callan looked into her eyes, eyes of a leader, a warrior, a woman who carried the weight of an empire. Because fear was never the right way to see you. Then how should I be seen? She whispered. As someone worth standing beside, he said. Her breath caught. She had been surrounded by followers, yes, but none had ever stood beside her without fear, without motive, without ambition. Just honesty, just courage, just presence. Slowly, her expression softened more than anyone had ever seen from her. Callan Ward, she said quietly, you have changed more in this palace than you realize. He smiled gently. Maybe it needed changing. She looked down for a moment, then back at him. Callan glanced at Carvol, then at her. I found something here I didn't expect. What is that? He hesitated only for a moment. A reason to stay. Irindra's eyes softened in a way that was almost impossible to imagine for someone of her rank. A warmth spread across her expression. A connection that had formed slowly, patiently, naturally. Carvol nudged Callan's arm gently, a sign of acceptance, almost affection. Irindra stepped closer until she stood right before him. Then, stay, she said softly. Not because of duty, but because you choose to. Callan nodded. I choose to. For the first time in her life, Princess Irindra felt something powerful, something stronger than fear, stronger than authority, stronger than any throne she had ever sat upon. She felt trust. She felt companionship. She felt peace. A human had brought her that. She never looked at him the same again, and she never would.